Hey everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Crate, and we're going to continue working on Safari Adventure. So this is page 2, and we've got 3 flaps and 1 pocket. So I'm going to set these aside for a second. And so here's page 2, and here's my spine side. There's the pocket. So the spine will go in here, and the pocket's over here. We've got a pocket that's going to go to be attached to the bottom part of the paper. And it is 9 by 3.5, and you're going to score a 1/2 inch on 3 sides. So let's get that in. Let me get my pick tool. And I have my tape on, so this should go pretty quick, and then we'll get right on to the decorating part. Okay. So this page, I don't think I'm going to put a magnet on. I might change my mind later, but at the moment we're not going to plan on a magnet. Okay, so on the bottom of page 2, we're going to apply this pocket just flush to the edge of the page. There we go. Looks beautiful. So now we've got this large flap, which is going to open toward the top, and then we've got these 2 flaps that are going to open left and right, like so. These small flaps are, let me double check, 4 by 6.5. 4 by 6.5, you're going to score a 1/2 inch on the 6.5 inch side. You're going to need 2 of those for this page. Okay, and then what I've done is, I'm going to come up, make sure you guys can see this, is I've added a little tick mark right here, and that's just the center of this flap. And so right here, I've added where I want to match up that tick mark, and I'll tell you how I did it. So I went ahead and placed my flap here, and I want these 2 flaps, which are going to be on the inside, to be centered on this flap. So that's where I came up with that. So I know that's a little bit confusing, but as you can see, this top flap is going to leave a 1/2 inch gap here. So I came down 5 inches, and then I placed my tick mark right in the middle because I want it centered and not hanging down into this open space where we'll have a 1/2 inch gap. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. And I'll tell you the other way to do it is you're going to come down from the top of the pocket page a 1/4 inch. Okay. And there's no magic. I just did that because I didn't want them hanging past the top flap, and I just thought it would make for a nice design. And you know what? We need to do these second, and I'll show you why. We're going to put this one on first because when we open it up, this flap is going to come down a 1/2 inch, and we're going to apply these a 1/4 inch, so they're going to overlap. So I want this one on first. Sorry about that. And I should tell you the size of this. And I'm going to double check. It's 8 inches by 5. 8 by 5, and you're going to score a 1/2 inch on the 5 inch side. And we're just going flush with the edge of the pocket page, like so. Okay, now we are going to apply these. And like I said, you're going to come down from this score line up here about a 1/4 inch. And we just want it nice and straight. So I'm going to bring this up so you can see kind of what I've done. So there's the score line for the top flap. Come down about a 1/4 inch and apply this flap. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Oops, not quite. There we go. So there are our left, right flaps, and the top that's going to come down, and we're going to put something in the pocket to keep everything closed. And for the moment, let me see if I can find a scrap piece of paper. Nothing handy. I'm going to find something to keep this closed, but that's what we've got for page 2. Okay, so again, we've got this, this, and this. So this can all be held together with a magnet, or what I'm planning to do is this, especially since I used 2 magnets on the preceding page, I wanted to try to do at least 1 page without a magnet, so it all kind of evens out in the end. Okay, all right, so that's it for page 2. When I come back, we'll work on decorating it. Good morning, everyone. This is Daphne with Scrap and Create, and we are continuing to work on page 2 of Safari Adventure, and for whatever reason I have a hard time remembering the name of this collection. So I've got some of the papers laid out, and I think these are trimmed and ready to go. I have to apologize for page 1, and I may continue to get up and down and check to make sure I'm recording, because I don't want to make that mistake again like I did yesterday. Anyways, this is what I've got laid out for page 2, and if you recall, we've got a flap that goes up, we've got these 2 that go left, right, and then we have a pocket. Okay, so let's get started. So all I've done is I've taken this paper and I've trimmed it in half, right? So I'm going to use the alternate side down here on the pocket and this on the top flap. Hello, Nala. My little girl came in to see me. She's feeling a little under the weather for some reason. So I'm trying to keep a kind of a close eye on her because she's so down. We went for a very long walk, a 4-mile walk yesterday, and she just hasn't been herself since. So she's laying right here at my feet, which is nice. I like that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to cover the pocket first. It's almost time to change my glue bottle. I might be able to squeeze 1 or 2 more pages out of this one. Oh, I can tell you, I spent about 45 minutes on page 1 yesterday, and I was so disappointed when I realized I hadn't hit the record button, that I was actually set to photo. So when I clicked the button, I just took a picture as opposed to turning on the record. That was very disappointing, but I just blabbed my head off, so I can't remember what I told you and what I covered so much ground, and then of course nothing was being recorded, so what do you do? Anyway. It's good to be back, and I need, I think, to get, a piece of contrast here so I can see how I'm doing. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. Pretty good. It was very hard to see the edge of the pocket. Okay, let's go ahead and decorate the top flap. I'm going to turn it over so I can bring my edges closer to me. And it's funny that I made that mistake on page 1, because that's also where I had originally planned for my flaps to go horizontally, and I wound up doing vertical because I actually glued them down in the wrong orientation. So page 1 is just not happening for me. So anyway, hey, I want to remind you guys right now that moving forward, I'm going to start doing these polls on my YouTube channel, asking you guys for feedback on album size. And I think my next poll is going to be asking you guys to choose between a couple of different paper collections. So I think my next poll will be out a little bit later. Well, it should already be out by the time this video is released. So I'm looking for feedback on what paper collections you guys want me to work on following the House of Roses, which that one's already planned, but after that we've got some opportunity to get you guys to vote on what you'd like to see next. So there is the beginning of page 2. I'm liking it. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and decorate these 2 panels first, and here's what I've decided to do. I'm going to apply this here and this here, and then I'm going to have a centerpiece, which I'm choosing this one to go right here. So this just looks like one continuous pattern, but it's actually a flap. And let me tell you the size of these 2 strips, and just makes it super easy. They're 2 inches, and the way I came up with that, I'd like to share that with you guys, is this flap is 4 by 6.5, and you got a 1/2 inch score. So you have a finished 4 by 6 that's sitting on top of an 8-inch pocket page. So that means I've got 2 inches to cover, hence the 2-inch piece that I trimmed out. So that's how I came up with it. And I like to try to share my thought processes for those of you that are you know, anxious to go off and start designing on your own, these are things to consider, right? 4 by 6 is a pretty magic number size, because that is the traditional size of most photographs. So I like to use increments. I'm going to use my contrast paper again. I like to try to plan around the size of what photographs will usually be. I rarely make anything that's smaller than 3.5 by 3.5, because that's a photo that's been trimmed down or cropped out quite a bit, or it could be a school photo, you know, the little wallet size, but it's not a very common size. Most people's photographs are 4 by 6, so I like to leave lots of room for that size, and a few 5 by 7s. Okay, so that is in. And see, we close that and we've got that, and now I'm going to add it to this side, and it's going to frame the centerpiece, which will trim down to fit after we get both these placed. All right, and I've already inked it, so there we go. And again, these are 2 inches, and they're just shy of 4, so they're 2 by 3 and 7/8. 2 by 3 and 7/8. And don't look for the cut list. I don't do a cut list on a designer paper, because you have some choices. Not everybody does it with the design paper I choose, and then you don't even have to cut the design paper that, you know, this could just be a 4 by 6 design piece. It doesn't have to be color blocked. So it's just too difficult to give you guys a cut list for the designer paper. I wind up trimming to fit as well. Okay, so that's in. Okay, so now I've got these 2, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side, right? So I'm going to have this and then this. So the question is, which one do I want front? And I think I want this one. It's a little bit louder, a little bit brighter. So as you can see, I still need to trim this down to fit. It's the right height, but it needs to be a little bit narrower. So I'm going to trim that down right now. And because I have to trim it, I'm going to have to re-ink it. So I'm going to test this, but I think that's still not quite enough. No, it's not. That should do it. Even that's a little, maybe a little bit more. A little bit more. Okay, I'm going to ink my edges since I trimmed it. A little too much glue. All right, so there we go. So now we're going to do the same thing on the inside here. And I'm certain this will need to be trimmed as well. Yes, it does. And this one, for whatever reason, it didn't go in very straight. Or this is cut crooked, so I'm going to straighten that out a little bit. It's quite crooked, actually. I don't know what happened there, but it's quite crooked. Let's see if we can straighten that up a little bit, square it off much better. Okay, I'm going to take the rest off of this side. And I'm taking it off both sides because I'm trying to keep that bird centered. Let's see, how much more do we need to do? Well, it's good to be back and filming. Sometimes it's hard for me to get going, but once I get going, I enjoy it. It just seems like there's so much to do. I've been spending a fair amount of time sitting on top of my 17-year-old, trying to make sure his homework is getting done. This distance learning is not a picnic for parents, that's for sure. So I feel like I'm constantly on him about one thing or another. You know what? That is really off. So I'm not happy with that. I'm gonna take it up real quick before it's totally dry and try to square the top of it. I don't know why it's so crooked, but it is. If I can't make it fit, I'm gonna consider cutting another one out. Look how far off the top is from the rest of it. I don't know what happened here. I think I'm going to try to trim out another piece. So I'm going to let that dry. Checking it on the other side. See, why is it so far off? For some reason, I didn't get square, and you can see it's closer to the edge here than it is here. And so that's really showing up on the other side. So I'm going to find another piece to trim out. So be patient with me. And I think I'll use this. Doesn't have to be the bird, right? And in this case, I think I'm going to go ahead and put my little marks so that I get a better result. Okay, let's see how that looks. That's better. It could actually be the flap itself. It's better. So I'm going to take a little tiny sliver off the edge and ink it and we'll lay it down. Okay, now if I had my druthers, it would be another bird, but I'm not going to take the time to trim that out. And this was a scrap that I had handy, and it looks good too. Yeah, actually, it's a little bit more variety. There we go. Lovely. Okay, now what is next? We've got to cover the inside. So this is what I chose for the inside. And I think I'm going to do, put this on top. I've got a little strip that's going to run here, and then this is going to come down here. So this is really pretty. I like this. It's a lot of color, but I like it. So I'm going to start by laying down my strip first, because if anything needs to be trimmed off this, I'm going to trim the larger one, not the smaller one. And this strip happens to be 7/8 of an inch, so it's just shy of an inch, 7/8 of an inch. And I think it's that, I cut it that way, it's not an inch, because it just happened to be a piece of scrap and that worked with this size. So I don't think there's any magic beyond that. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay my smallest piece down first. And it's already inked. Okay. Okay. Now we can go ahead and see if this needs to be trimmed, and looks like it does. Not a lot. Oh, you know what? That's pretty good. Considering I hadn't checked it earlier, that's pretty good. I'm just gonna lay it down as is. I'd rather have the little color blocking be a little bit too tight than too far apart. It really bothers me when the gap is too far. And this is really not directional, but there is a direction on the other side, so I'm going to be consistent and put it in the right orientation, even though I don't think you can tell from this side. There we go. That's pretty rare. Usually I have to do some trimming when I color block, but I feel kind of lucky there. Okay. Now this is going to go here, and it's a little bit larger than we need, and that's fine because we're going to slip it inside the pocket. So let's go ahead and do this one next. Okay, I'm just checking it side to side. I keep picking up the wrong glue bottle. But it looks good, so I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but if you're going to tuck your designer paper inside your pocket, make sure you put plenty of glue on the top and then leave about a 1/2 inch of no glue on the bottom, and it helps slide into the pocket. And it's not like it's going to come untucked from the pocket, so I don't think there's any risk there. And then if you push it into the pocket further than it needs to go and you need to pull it back out, you're not dragging glue across the inside of your pocket. So that's a tip for you guys. So I'm going to show you. So I stopped the glue right here. So that's going to allow me to tuck it into the pocket and then pull it back out to make it perfect and not leave a trail of glue behind. And there I go, pulling it back into place. And that works out perfect. And this makes, you know, things tuck right in because this decorative paper is slightly under. There's nothing for whatever you're going to tuck in here to get hung up on. There we go. Okay, now we've got these two pieces. Let me see. I think I'm going to put them in just like so. Just like so. Ha! I just realized that if I had turned this around, these patterns would have lined up, but oh well. Let me dry fit this real quick. It looks good. Which I'm sure I did that on purpose and I just wasn't paying attention when I laid it down. Okay, this is our last panel. And then we are going to make something to go into that pocket, but not right now. I'm going to stop after I get this panel down covered. And I usually wait to make things like the inserts last because I want to see what's left over with my paper, which patterns and how and what sizes are left after I cover the main body of the album. So that will get done a little bit later. My guess is I'll have at least one tag and maybe a bifold card. So that closes like so. This closes this way. This is going to come down from the top, and then we'll have something in this pocket, and I'm not sure what yet. For now, I'm going to just leave this 4x6 photo mat tucked in here, and we'll do something else. So that's the end of page 2. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, take a second to subscribe and hit that button. And what that'll do is that'll notify you every time we have new content. So it is our goal to get new content out on this channel every 2 weeks, and that content will be in the form of an album. So when we release our albums, we release all of the accompanying tutorial videos at the same time. So our goal, like I said, is to get out an album every 2 weeks. Faster if I can, but that's usually pretty good, because each one of the projects has anywhere from 8 to 10 videos accompanying it to put the album together. So again, thanks everybody for tuning in. This is Daphne from Scrap and Create. We just completed page 2. When we get back together, we will be working on page 3.